Hello everybody, and welcome to the panel of Genomic Innovation in Cancer Treatment and Prevention. And we have the honor of having as speakers at this panel Ms. Flaviana Rotaru, President of ROHEALTH, and the Health and Bioeconomy Cluster. And we have also present here already Lucian Cojocaru, Manager of the Biogenetics. And we have Florentina Furtunescu. Is she? She's not present yet. We have online Marie-Julie Duchamp. She's PhD already and researcher and founder of the application I Can Feel. And Professor Maria Puiu, that will be online, and she is the Deputy Director General of Genomic Research and Development Institute. So please welcome all the speakers today, and let's start with Flaviana Rotaru, of course, and
yeah, it's okay. Good morning, thank you for the invitation. My role here is a bit different. I'm not a genetic engineer. I'm not in this research area. I'm more in the financing area, which is very promising for the genomics. And we have in ROHEALTH a group dedicated to this subject, which is at the beginning and will grow. And we hope to really make people aware about the importance of genomics and genetics, and hopefully in the future in this group will be more interesting people and more young researchers interested about the subject, because it seems this is the future of medicine, and we need more and more human resources to sustain the research in this area. Thank you very much.
I know that you had a project, ProMed, and this project involved a lot of genomics, genetics,
yes.
And it was very special, and we'll link you to the other
We have
speaker.
a presentation for this. My colleagues will send it. If you want to, I will just talk a bit about it.
Okay, then.
About what we managed to do together, actually. Just a second, yeah. Yeah, it takes 10 seconds to jump from offline to online. So I want to tell you a story about the product that we started years ago. It's a non-invasive, innovative solution for early detection of colorectal and lung cancer. It's based on a genetic analysis. It's here. Thank you. Yep. As you know, the numbers for colorectal and lung cancer are very high, and it's increasing. So we need methods to diagnose earlier these diseases, because usually for the lung cancer it's very, very, very late, and the rate of survival is 15%. For colorectal we stay a bit better, but just a bit, because again it's diagnosed late. And the tools used for diagnosis looks like this. What we try to do with our algorithm is to not to jump over, because colonoscopy is having like 25 error%, and is not pleasant, and usually it's done after you have some signs that something is not okay. But with this algorithm and blood analysis, we can detect earlier than you can see on the picture. As you know, the colon is not flat. Even if you do it, sometimes you cannot see it in the early stages. For the lung cancer, it's even worse. For both of them, now you have to have anesthesia, you are out of work 2 days, and usually people, that's why they don't do the screening. It's not pleasant, it takes time. But if via algorithm you find out that you might have, because you are not allowed as software development, say you have cancer, this is something that the doctor will say always. But we can say you are something it's not quite okay in this area, and you should do some things that might delay and prevent, starting with the way you eat, starting with smoking, if you talk about lung cancer and so on. So this product should be part of the annual checkup to see where you stay and to do some small baby steps to change a bit the story. Oh, it's very stubborn. Can you do it? Okay. So we have this AI-driven innovative solution. Already we tested on more than 1,000 patients, so we know it works. Of course, it's an urgent need for better diagnosis, especially that the number of doctors is also very low. So even if you want to go to a doctor, the time he can spend with you is very limited. And usually after 20 patients, the ability to actually see is very much reduced. So this kind of solution will affect a lot of groups from doctors, patients. Actually, healthy people should use it because it's a drop of blood going through DNA sequencing. And this is what you can get at the end from your doctor. So you cannot use this test without a doctor in front asking for it. We are now applying for a new project for together with the biggest company in medical services in Romania to actually get the CE mark and put it in the market. Thank you very much, Florina. Of course, we won some awards. So Romania is doing research in health. It costs time and money. We have some also some barrier because the regulatory landscape change and software is a medical device now, especially if it's used for prediction or treatment. So don't miss to connect with the regulatory part from the beginning of the idea. It will cost you less money and time. Because it's very new in the market, you stay like 1.5 years in the queue for getting a CE mark for an algorithm. So take this into consideration when you develop your new product. And I hope, yeah, we've been very good with this algorithm because it's already on real data. And we hope in the future, in 2 years from now, 3 maximum, to actually have it also here and for you all to use it. Thank you very much.
Do we have online? She's ready? Okay. So it is, sorry. I would like to invite, it's online now, I just made sure that she's online because she is from now in Mexico. Hello, Marie-Jolie Deschamps. And she is doing actually art therapy, and she has an application software, I Can Feel, which she developed during her PhD in the United States. She told me an incredible story. She went to Mexico to study the grief, and in Mexico she found love, she told me. And as you can see, even behind her, she has beautiful paintings, colorful. And she will tell us a little bit about how the art therapy and what she developed during her PhD can change the life of the oncologic patients. So Marie, you have, you can say your thoughts now.
Harvard boot camp in 2018. We were already then very excited about changing the way healthcare was delivered. So I'll share a little bit something I prepared for you all. I know it might be the first time you're hearing about this, and so I'm really happy to hear for questions afterwards. But really, I want to show you a little bit about the work we've been doing here. It's called I Can Feel. And the idea is to go from something that's more of a one size fits all towards a whole person algorithm of care, which I think is the whole point with the, more of a genomics, aspect of care. So in a nutshell, I'm going to have to, summarize in seconds what an entire profession means. But if you have to remember something, it's we are a global mental health profession. We are present in almost every country. We are evidence-based. We've been, collecting and analyzing, research for now 50, 60 years with great results and very encouraging results. Very accessible. That means we're for children, but also people who are on the autism spectrum, where verbal, expression is not so easy, and fully integrated in care. So, for example, here in Houston, in all the major hospitals for adults and children, our therapists are working with oncologists and radio specialists, and like the pain medication. So everybody works together as a team. We're not separated. And from a more of a theoretical framework, it's like we the way we see it is like when you engage in a creative process, and when you do a creative process, it doesn't need to be art making, it doesn't need to be pretty, just you could be building blocks, you could be breaking something, anything that takes your entire body to create and mobilize both your imagination and your cognitive senses. And as you do that, you reveal yourself, and that's so important for us in medical care, because if I don't know how you feel, it's really hard for me to help you. And also the beauty of the creative process is not only it makes me feel and express, but it connects me to the world. When I create, I connect to the world. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. Um, so I'll maybe play a game with you. I can't see you. I wish I was with you there. But if you think of cancer, which metaphor comes to your mind? Like which animal would it be? I don't know if someone can respond and I could hear them, but if you think of cancer, which metaphor comes to mind in terms of an animal? I don't know if you can speak out loud. Or someone puts it in the chat.
Somebody from
A
the
shark.
audience.
Yes, thank you. And the shark, yeah, it's usually an animal we don't really want to have in our water when we swim, right? But that's very important. That's been how I started this research when I was at the hospital in Mexico City. I was realizing that the way, patients were describing their illness and their symptoms, oftentimes when they used the metaphoric, the indirect, creative approach, they were giving me a lot of details. And then I would go and see my oncology colleagues and say, did you hear this and that? Because I think it's really impacting the way they're taking or not taking their treatment. That, oh, really? How did you find out? And then I was like, well, then I'm going to need to find a way to make this more, scalable. So, by the way, this is, I think you know him very well, Victor Brauner. It's an artist from your country that I love very much, a great surrealist that I've been enjoying discovering the work of. So I've been passionate about discovering about oncological distress. I don't know about how everybody is in the room, but we know now that oncological distress, described as a mix of hopelessness, anxiety, fear, and depression, is a sixth vital sign in oncology. Here in the United States, it's mandatory to screen for distress in all our patients. And usually we do that with different, scale from 0 to 10, how depressed are you? From 0 to 10, how anxious are you? And it's very important because the research is really showing, and it makes sense, that when you do have distress, you're less likely to continue with your treatment, to believe it will work. And actually, your morbidity rate is higher when you have distress. So it's very important that we are helping people with their mental health. So when we think about, the way we measure all this, I was thinking we're missing this data layer. I'm someone that said, I come actually from a very, like scientific and economics background, and it's like we need to find a way to make data out of something that's very hard to explain, which is, how we adapt, how we cope, how we metabolize the cancer experience. And I think this image on the right really shows that, it's like there's so many layers to us, and the patient who is dealing with cancer will maybe not reveal to the doctor or their family the real reality of what they're experiencing, because oftentimes we ask the cancer patient to be very brave and very stoic, and culturally this is also depends on many things about the country and what we talked about, what was taboo or not taboo in our families. So I can feel, in a nutshell, we've been now testing, we're finishing our clinical trial at MD Anderson Cancer Center. We're doing it with the pain psychology department with Dr. Carlos Roldan. And the idea is like we have patients, instead of responding 0 to 10, how is your pain, or find me a number, we make them choose art images. And then they choose those art images, which are very eclectic. And then and then they explain to us why they chose it. And as they choose it, explaining that to us, we're recording the information, and it becomes very, very detailed and very granular form of data. This was the protocol. I don't have that much time today, but we try to see the patient as their own baseline and how they were using I Can Feel, and if it was influencing in one way or another the Edmonton Symptom Assessment System, which is a validated, globally used tool. So that's what we were looking at. Do we have any changes in disclosure? Do we have any change in symptom burden? And actually, and this is a very small sample. We're the very beginning. These are preliminary results. I'm actually, hoping for clinical trials with multiple centers to start opening to more people. But we have been so far finding some significant differences in the way, symptom burden is expressed after using the tool. So this is, even though we're not sure this is just the tool, could be a number of things, but it's at least in the right direction. And we're also looking at the emotional adaptivities, like, what kind of statements are people making? Is cancer something I can adapt to or not? And really that's very important, because I can say that cancer is very hard on me, but I have resources, then I'm not too worried about you. But if cancer, in your metaphor, it's like a shark and I'm alone in water, then I'm worried for you, because what is your way out? And so from a theoretical point of view, it's like we use the metaphor to help the patient have more self-awareness. And when I have more self-awareness about my metaphor, if it's useful to me or not, then I can adapt and cope. So the future now, this is the next step we're working on, it's like the AI integration, because we know about precision medicine, the 5 Ps, but 3 of them is the predictive, preventive, and participatory. And this is what we're doing with this tool. And on the bottom, you see, it's like we're starting to see, where do people place their cancer image? Do we see any clusters? And with a lot of data, we're estimating like 10,000 data points, which is not that much on a global level, we could be starting to see, when people start using this image and putting it here, does it indicate that maybe they're going to be developing, early depression? And then we're also looking at how to respond, and not just detect, but also respond, with the team and with, AI, and maybe support, as we talk about genomics, how we're going to be helping people deal with some, news, with some decisions, but also making sure that people are ready to take action and take the treatments that are available to them, and we'll be able to check, how can we best help them to deal with their illness and cope and adapt and survive. So, and I just want to finish here, saying how you need to allow your imagination to flow, because, I really believe that this is also an organ that's part of us as humans, our imagination. We need to check it in our patient, but we need to check it in ourselves, because in your imagination right now, everybody in the room is the future of medical care, and it doesn't exist yet, and we're creating it all together. So, mulțumesc and merci. Tutti suntem artisti, să inventăm împreună. And sorry for my very terrible Romanian, but that was my way of, connecting to you. And if you want, you can join, connect to my website and read the dissertation and, everything we've been doing on this QR code.
Thank you very much, Marie. Do we have any questions from the audience for Marie? I would say that what you are doing is fantastic. I mean, to have an application I can feel, and you told me that you want to develop also for the people around the patient, so we can feel actually. But do you think that this application and art therapy can be integrated within precision medicine, and how? What do you think?
Well, I hope so, and I'm sure we're more than me and our team, doing this kind of work. But when you think about genomics, which is like the code, of life, and then epigenetics is how this code is, responding in life, and then the kind of creative, sensitive data we're trying to pick up here, it's like also our chance to influence that, because once I know how you think and I know how you perceive the world, then I can really help you, with therapy, with embodiment of all sorts of application, physical, creative. We can support you to have the kind of framework that will respond better to treatment. So I don't think you can have those amazing advances in detection and prediction in treatment without making sure that the whole of the person is present, that the whole of their story is present. But for now, those subjective information, it's more like patient to patient. And that's beautiful, and we need to keep the human connection between the patient and their physician. But also we have AI, which enables us to start seeing things that my eyes cannot see. The same way in radiology, we're able to see some things. And so now picking up very sensitive, very subjective, personal history data of like how I see the world and putting it with the power of AI and respecting the ethics and of course the data ownership, but maybe we're going to be able to see something. Maybe there is a connection. And epigenetics tends to suggest that there is. And yes, there is another version we're preparing now, which is We Can Feel, and it's to support families dealing with cancer. So especially when parents have to talk to children about their illness or the children's illness, and how do we communicate with those around us when we have different ways of talking and accessing information. And so we're just trying to support the family and collect data in the same place so that it's not just a psychosocial help, but really a fully integrated part of the treatment. And the tool is digital, but cannot be shared because we're finishing the clinical trial first. But I'm very open to look at the multi-site possibilities. And I'm European, so for me, connecting to Europe is very important too. And the sixth vital sign is we're saying that, like checking for someone's, distress or well-being is a huge part of evaluating them. The same way you would be looking at, their pressure or, their markers and stuff to check their well-being, to check their mental health and their emotional health. And I was going to say to also check their imagination. A patient who cannot imagine anymore is a patient that's really in trouble. And we need to stimulate their imagination. And that also takes not just the genomic innovation, but also the spaces we do medicine in. And we need to see sunlight, and we need colors, and we need imagination and music. And it is not just something for when we are healthy. I think it's actually when we're sick that we need it most.
Thank you very much, Marie. And I would just like to add that we, as immunologists, I might say that the emotional state actually influences the immune system to fight against tumor. So there is a neuroimmune connection which is very, very strong. So I would say that emotional state is very important for fighting against cancer in this case. So keep going and doing what you are doing. And it was very nice to have you here, and I hope you can stay, because I know it's early in the morning in Mexico, but maybe you can stay longer for the whole panel.
I'm up now. I'm staying.
Okay, then. Okay, thank you very much. From the audience, if there are questions at this moment? No, but maybe later. So we will move to the next panelist, and it's Lucian Cojocaru. He is the owner and the manager of the biogenetics company. And I would like just to add that I know Lucian Cojocaru for more than 10 years, and he's an innovator in the field of genetic devices, let's say. It was the first device that he brought into our institution around 8 years ago about TCR profiling, and it was the first on the market at that moment. So I would like to introduce Lucian Cojocaru and ask him to tell us about the beginnings and how he managed to be always creative and innovative in this field of genomics.
It's working, yeah. Um, Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank ROHEALTH for having us here and letting us be part of this amazing event. To start from the beginning, let's say with the history of our company and what we are doing, we are a marketing and distribution company for medical devices, mainly genetics, molecular biology, equipments and solutions. We are covering both the areas of research, diagnostics, and of course, considering the topic of today, I have to connect my speech to what we are going to talk about today, and to just make to refer to your story. Yeah, it was, I think, 8 years ago when we have done, we tried a new technology of early cancer detection. Was happening in Oncogen in Timișoara. From my point of view, let's say, I'm sorry that the project did not continue, but of course it is still time, and at the moment we know and we see that the other centers in Romania are making steps in this direction. But coming back to my presentation today, as I am not a medical doctor, I am not a laboratory technician, I'm not a specialist, my background is in economics and mathematics, so I will talk about something I don't have any idea. But being together with people working in this field for many years, I will ask, maybe you will correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so we will have display. Okay. What I wanted to propose for today, it's not, let's say, before getting to the technical topics, I want to refer a little bit to what is now going on in cancer field. Because if we look back like 10, 15 years, we were talking about technologies which were allowing us to confirm when we had a suspicion. We were having technologies which were targeted, which were allowing us to see if something is indeed present in the genome, in other biomarkers. While in this moment, the environment is changing completely, because starting from point detection, we are now going in broad range information. So we do not have now only the confirmation of what we are suspecting with the patient or genome in general, but now we have plenty of information, and in some cases it's more than we can handle. As you may know, there are newer technologies now which are allowing us to have huge quantities of data, so that in between the moment we analyze the samples from the patients and the moment we know exactly what is going on, we can have hours, days, or maybe years. Now there are algorithms which are used to analyze data we have collected in the past, and we see that going further and further and analyzing more and more data from whole genome sequencing, from whole exome sequencing, we get new conclusions based on old data we were collecting. At the moment, we can consider that we are in let's say, a change of concept. Yeah, this change of concept might be seen or not, because it's something going on step by step. It's not, let's say, a violent change in the approach. But more or less, what we see now is that we have collected a lot of technology in the last 10, 15 years, which now creates results. And again, we have answers as we have more questions. We have more and more questions regarding how we can use this technology, which kind of conclusions we can have based on the information we get today, and so on. I imagined this process as, you know, in the last 10, 15 years, we built a bicycle, and now we are trying to use it. We are now learning how to ride it, and some are riding this bicycle normally, others are going in the mountains, others are going freestyle with hands off or in one wheel and so on. So we have this technology which is very flexible, which is providing a lot of possibilities, and we just follow path by path by path, and we try to get more and more data. Now, of course, from my point of view, there are few directions we shall follow. First is a new relation between the clinical evaluation, the paraclinical or laboratory diagnostics, and AI. And this can be something very different in few years. Yeah, we see AI is getting more and more, let's say, share in the diagnostic process, and of course there are going to be many, let's say, aspects regarding AI usage which will have to be clarified in the future. We only have to consider that if we have, let's say, a diagnostic today based on an AI algorithm which we don't know what's having behind. Again, AI is a software which is developing itself. If we will analyze this result in 6 months, we will not be able to recreate the conditions we had today to get that result. This is a question mark, because if in 6 months we are going to have with the same AI different results, we will not know what happened, because it's a software, again, developing itself. This is one point, and here probably the information from the lab and the information known and managed by the doctors is going to be critical. So AI is going to be like a wild horse which we have to handle. Then we are going to have a new relationship between the latest discoveries and the existing medical protocols, because, you know, here we have in between, we have the regulation. As Flaviana exposed earlier, we have a tool, but because this tool is not having the necessary certification, even if the tool would be useful for the patients, we cannot use it. So we are going to have a gap, always. We are going to have a gap in between the moment we have a tool which can help people and the moment we will be able to help people with that tool. Yeah? Of course, this is something new. This is something coming from, let's say, the last years, and we have to identify the possibilities to create, let's say, procedures or, I don't know, routines to have this gap smaller and smaller. Another new relation which appears is between the research activities and the applications in medical practice. As you may know probably now, if we talk about NGS sequencing, some of the tests are CE-IVD, and the customers, the clinics, the doctors are requiring CE certified solutions, and some are not. Because if we just see that the World Health Organization is providing every 3 months, they revise the panels for cancer, we would not have been able to have kits which are CE certified every 3 months, of course, yes? So at some moment, we can have either an updated kit, which is not CE-IVD, or a CE-IVD kit which is not updated. What do we choose in between this? Another very interesting, let's say, topic I would have here, it is, for instance, regarding the usage of the new next generation sequencing technologies. One of these technologies is provided by our company in Romania, in Moldova. During the brain surgery, the surgeon is collecting a sample. Sample is sent to the laboratory. The laboratory, they make a sequencing test, and then they decide if that sample is affected by cancer or not. So we have results for NGS in 40 minutes. It's about methylation. If you want more details, my colleagues can give you. Again, I'm economist. I will leave the doctors to talk about this more. But here we are in between. Yeah, we are in between the research, because that's a research tool, and the clinic. The last topic I identified is the new relation between the medical sector and healthy people. Because now, if we just look back, we can consider that the advance of the medical sector is that high that nobody's healthy anymore. Nobody can have a test and not identify something, yeah? 2 weeks ago, it was the conference of the Romanian Society of Human Genetics, and in one of the presentations was mentioned that it's expected that for next year, the number of NGS tests for healthy people are going to be 3 times more than the NGS tests for patients. Why? Because are testing now anti-aging, I don't know, nutrition, sports, whatever, yes? So, what this is showing us, all these topics, what we see is that now it's not anymore managing cancer, it's also managing how we cannot get there. So a big part of what is now let's say, the cancer approach is the prophylaxis of cancer. Yeah, we do not have to get there, we do not have to face the problems coming with the cancer. Now we can see it everywhere. It's part of our day-to-day life environment. Yeah, it's a problem of the modern society. But it is very important to know which are the paths, which are the triggers, which are launching the cancer or are creating the let's say, conditions to get it. And if we know these gates and we can close these gates, we will not get there. I will go further. Okay. So, coming back to what I was saying previously, this is, let's say, what we see now happening in the process of diagnostics. Of course, again, looking to the big picture, we have pharma companies, we have clinical sector, we have more and more technology. And when we talk about technology, we talk about equipment. And when it's about equipment, it's mathematics, software development companies, nanotechnology companies, hydraulics companies, microfluidics, electronics, automation. There are so many. Yeah? Today, we cannot talk about a medical instrument without seeing the merge of all these fields into the technology of the device. So any kind of complex device is going to incorporate knowledge from many fields. But what we see is that in this part, yeah, when we talk about the information coming from the lab, we went from serological biomarkers, biochemistry, immunology, hematology, I don't know, cytogenetics, and so on. We are moving towards NGS, genomics, proteomics, transcriptomics, and so on. Yeah? Meaning that this information for the clinicians are more and more important. What we see is that these two sectors are moving, letting the NGS to be closer and closer and providing more and more data for the diagnostics. Then, of course, we have data analysis, we have AI, which is involved. We get the medical report, and then the medical report goes back to feed AI and the clinician. And now, going to what we do best, I was talking to you about the technologies which are now providing in Romania. It is the first platform or platforms which I want to present are the nanopore sequencing technologies. Is the third, fourth NGS sequencing generation. What is new about these devices is that they are portable, they are very small. Unfortunately, I do not have one with mine, but it's slightly bigger than this remote control. And they are providing information in real time from long fragments of DNA or RNA, meaning it's long-read NGS sequencing. What's important is that we can have native DNA, native RNA, so without any amplification. We have methylation information, we can have, let's say, double reads. We can have targeted sequencing, more or less, or let's say virtually, these kind of devices can cover any kind of application we used to know from the past with, let's say, short read sequencing technologies. And on top of this, some more. This is another field of activity where we have, let's say, a very good position in Romania. By the way, in this moment, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but in Romania there is a cytogenetics lab, which is the biggest in Europe. Based on the platforms we have installed, they have the biggest throughput, and they are collecting samples from 5-6 countries. They have all these automation instruments, which are starting from the robots for harvesting, robots for slides preparation, and then automatic analysis. These instruments are quite complex. They are working in a controlled environment, and they are providing very, very good results compared to what we used to have and know from the past. I thank you very much. It was, and it is, a pleasure for me to be here in front of you. And of course, again, it is a big pleasure for me to be part of this event and be together with Flaviana Rotaru here. Thank you very much.
So I would like to ask you, do you, as owner of a company which delivers devices, a lot of them, do you have in your portfolio, for instance, something for multi-omics, like one device, multi-omics, because as you mentioned in the last slide, there are many devices doing a lot of things. You mentioned HPLC, LCMS, and so on. Do you have something like this, for instance? Do you think they are useful? Do you?
Proteomics? Proteomics?
Proteomics, multi-omics.
Yeah, of course, the instruments which I shown earlier, they are now being used for NGS sequencing, yeah. But for the next year, it is announced to launch a new cartridges which are going to let us sequence also proteins. In the moment, yeah, we have DNA, RNA, amplified, native, any kind of sample. So we are covering, let's say, everything regards the nucleic acids. Next year, we will also have the cartridges for proteins. What I can say from the very beginning, just not to let's say, create false expectations. There are going to be a limited number of proteins which we will be able to sequence, but of course enough to understand the physiology of the cells and what is going on there. And together with the NGS sequencing and transcriptomics, having this information from proteomics, I think would be, let's say, reasonably enough to understand what we have in that sample. You know, this field, maybe we see everything as being let's say, advanced and high-tech and something very new. But the reality is that in 50 years, we will understand that this was a very, very, let's say, shy start of these new activities. Now we understand, for instance, if we look back like 10 years ago, we were not able to understand the dependence between the immunity and the microbiome. Now we understand that are some connections, but we don't know which are those connections and how they act. Now we see that there are, for instance, bacteria which are traveling in our blood flow, but only sometimes Yeah, we understand that many of the imbalances we see in the gut or wherever, they can create pathologies which can reflect at some moment also in DNA changes and so on. So there are so many information. Imagine that until now we did not have an instrument to check if let's say, genomic information of a person starting from the first year of life until they die, it's having changes or not, and where. And if in the whole genome we have information which is, changes, we have changes which are creating different conditions for the whole exome. And sometimes we look in the whole exome and say we have some information for the pathological information we are looking for, but on the other hand, we don't know if that whole exome is influenced or not by other non-pathological changes which are happening in the whole genome and so on. So from this point, in the next maybe 100 or more years, now with the anti-aging technologies, maybe we will see it happening. I don't know.
I think earlier.
Yeah, it's just a joke. Yeah, but for sure, in 100 years, we are going to know much more than we know now. Yeah. Indeed, we have a lot of information which we don't know what to do with it.
Yes, this is true, and we don't have the ability to interpret them, actually. So that's why we need an AI to integrate them, to interpret them. So it's good that everything is developing together, AI and devices and data, big data interpretation. It's quite a problem at this moment. I understood that Marie Deschamps has a question for you. Please, can you put Marie?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. I'm not seeing you right now, but I want to say I'm so pleased to finally hear someone at a conference saying what we're doing now is just the very beginning, and we're going to be looking back 50 years from now and discovering that this was just it's refreshing. You know, so many of us go around feeling like we've evolved and we understand everything, but there's so little we still do understand about how we function and how we react and how we can change our brains, you know, I work in an addiction recovery clinic, and I see, you know, people who've been addicted for 20 years and being told they will never be able to change those behaviors and this disorder, but who are able to. So I think the neuroplasticity of our brain, you know, and our ability to challenge some things that are genetics about us. And so I guess my question for you is, you're picking up so much data, amazing. Why don't we add, you know, the subjective human layer of like who we are and how we react to things in our life? You know, how would we go about that?
I do
Since
believe
you
that
are creative like me.
Thank you. I do believe that for now, let's say one of the big problems was that we saw or will refer to the patient from the clinical perspective. Now what we understand is that the patient is not just a clinical subject. We see that let's say the brain balance is very important, nutrition is very important, having a normal life is very important, stress, or let's say the elimination of stress is also very important. There are so many things which are absolutely necessary next to the clinical approach. I have seen some studies, I think last year. It was evaluated the evolution of cancer patients having the same treatment in different countries with completely different results. And we have seen that in these situations, or it was shown that in these situations, the other, let's say the environment factors have made the difference. It was about hygiene, it was about nutrition, it was about psychological balance, or let's say the psychological care for that patient and so on. As you know, and it's somehow your activity, you are, let's say, putting the puzzle together, because when we have a cancer patient, the brain is breaking apart. And putting all these pieces of the puzzle together is going to help what is going behind. It is a very strong connection between the psychology and the cell physiology. And of course, the cell physiology is going to determine the capacity of the patient to fight with the cancer. If the patient is not having resources, is not having enough energy, will not be able to fight with cancer. And we know that the biggest consumer of energy in our body is our brain. If our brain is consuming too much energy for nothing, like depression, I don't know, in that moment, the rest of the energy will remain for other physiological activities and also to fight with cancer. So if we look on this topic from a mathematical perspective, it is very simple. If we are not using the patient's energy to fight cancer and we use it for other purposes, cancer will succeed, will develop. So this is what we have to consider. From my point of view, again, I'm just a mathematician or an economist living among the doctors, and I'm trying to collect information as, you know, with my limited understanding resources.
Thank you, Marie, for your question. Thank you, Lucian, for answering to that question. If we have any other questions from the audience, maybe? Somebody? From the online audience?
Online, there is one question. If you can hear me, I don't know. So I put a question in the chat, and it's...
So, if Ms. Flaviana Rotaru would like to add something as the organizer of this panel, let's say, or conference.
So I know it's the beginning, so this panel it's new in our event. It's the beginning, but as you can see, we can find out a lot of interesting information. I'm sure that next year will be better. I would have a question for Lucian related to the, because you must know, how we stay in terms of genetic and in terms of sequencing infrastructure in Romania. Okay, there is ROHEALTH that will do something, but this is for research. I'm talking about this infrastructure to be available in our labs in Romania. How is the situation? What do you feel about it?
Could we hold this question for a little bit later, because Professor Maria Puiu is now online and she would like to, to enter,
it's
if
perfect.
it's okay.
Yes.
So the next speaker is Professor Maria Puiu. She is the Deputy Director General of Genomics Research and Development Institute. But I would say she's from Timișoara, and she is still a great genetics teacher, and this is my presentation about a professor of our university, is the university that I come from, and all the warm regards from here, from Bucharest, to a university professor. Hello, Professor Maria Puiu. It's nice to have you.
Bună ziua pentru toată lumea. Îmi cer scuze pentru că nu sunt alături de voi. După cum vedeți, sunt îmbrăcată în roz, omagiu femeilor cu cancer de sân. Sigur, este o mare preocupare terapia personalizată în cancer, pentru că România are o serie de etape de recuperat în ceea ce privește terapia personalizată și aceste etape, sigur, sunt legate foarte, foarte mult de dezvoltarea geneticii și a genomicii. Am înțeles întrebarea pe care, sigur, toată lumea o are în minte, cum poate România să asigure o terapie personalizată pentru persoanele care au dezvoltat o formă de cancer sau cum poate să asigure o prevenție prin stabilirea predispoziției pentru diverse forme de cancer. Și aici, sigur, s-au făcut progrese, există multe laboratoare și publice și private care lucrează cu Casa Națională de Asigurări de Sănătate și cu Ministerul Sănătății, programe care pot deservi nevoile de personalizare a terapiei și de, știu eu, de intervenție rapidă în diversele forme de cancer. N-aș putea să le enumer pe toate. În primul rând aș aminti de centrele regionale de genetică medicală, dar și de institutele de oncologie, care au încercat, unele cu succes mai mare, unele moderat, să își dezvolte capacități de testare genetică și care, sigur, au aplicat pentru subvențiile asigurate de statul român. De asemenea, pot să spun că este un succes implicarea diversilor colegi geneticieni în echipele multidisciplinare cu oncologi și cu anatomopatologi. De curând, la conferința anuală a Societății Române de Genetică Medicală, am urmărit și am aflat modul în care colegii noștri au realizat aceste echipe și aceste zone de expertiză, pentru că nu mai pot să acoperi toate patologiile, fie că sunt cancere, fie că sunt boli rare sau alte afecțiuni care au nevoie de testare genetică. Cam astea sunt ideile mele, chiar încercând să fiu prezentă în mai multe locuri, am vrut să salut inițiativa și manifestarea dumneavoastră și faptul că încercați exact același lucru, să ne aduceți împreună și să realizăm echipe integrate, multidisciplinare, de care are nevoie sistemul medical românesc și, înainte de toate, pacientul român. Dacă aveți alte întrebări.
Vă mulțumim frumos pentru intervenție și din public, dacă sunt întrebări din audiență. Dacă nu, aș avea eu pentru dumneavoastră o întrebare și anume, cum vedeți, dumneavoastră ați înființat acest centru de boli rare în Timișoara și ați făcut mult bine multor oameni. Cum vedeți această trecere de la partea de boli rare spre partea de genomică într-un institut de cercetare mare? Este o schimbare de dimensiune doar sau este o schimbare și de viziune și de lucruri pe care le veți face?
Mulțumesc, îmi place foarte mult întrebarea. Sigur, în Timișoara am început cu Centru de Medicină Genomică. Deci un proiect mare european care ne-a permis să testăm din bani publici, să facem teste gratuite pentru pacienții, mai ales din zona de pediatrie, din zona de boli rare, așa cum ați remarcat. În Timișoara există centrele de expertiză în boli rare, realizate printr-un ordin românesc, evident, dar după modelul celor 24 de rețele de expertiză europene, cele 24 de RN-uri, European Reference Network, adresate pacienților cu boli cardiace rare, cu boli renale, cu boli inflamatorii de țesut conjunctiv și așa mai departe. Aceste 24 de rețele rețelei europene reprezintă un model de succes al Comisiei de Sănătate din România. Oare mă mai auziți?
Da, vă auzim, sigur că da.
Deci, modelul de succes în abordarea bolilor rare se referă la faptul că unele boli sunt rare sau ultra-rare și că este un nonsens să utilizăm resursele, uneori chiar puține, din sistemul fiecărei țări, să avem capacitatea de a aborda în egală măsură toate bolile rare. Și atunci s-a propus această concentrare a resurselor, și mă refer aici și la oameni și la echipamente, dar și la pacienților, pentru că cu cât vedem într-un serviciu mai mulți pacienți de același tip, cu atât vom fi mai în măsură să folosim, să recunoaștem mai repede și să îngrijim mai bine o patologie pe care am mai întâlnit-o și în care avem experiență. Acest model am dorit foarte mult să-l aduc în România. Trebuie să spun că este în fișa postului meu, reprezint România în bordul statelor membre la rețelele europene de expertiză și mi-am propus ca România să aibă centre de expertiză în toate rețelele europene. Deocamdată avem doar în 11 din cele 24, ceea ce nu este îmbucurător. Ce pot să facă aceste rețele de expertiză pentru pacientul cu boală rară din România? Poate să aducă informație și poate să instruiască mai bine cadrele medicale, deci training în primul rând și, așa cum spune o colegă de-a mea de la Timișoara, ne ajută și ne obligă să lucrăm cot la cot cu ceilalți europeni pe aceleași protocoale, pe aceleași investigații pentru diversele categorii de pacienți. Trebuie să știți că în bolile rare nu am fi avut succesul pe care considerăm noi că îl au aceste boli la nivelul sistemului nostru de sănătate dacă nu am fi colaborat foarte strâns cu asociațiile de pacienți. Deci, noi timișorenii ne mândrim cu faptul că am fost alături de doamna Dorica Dan la Zalău în 2007, când s-a înființat Alianța Națională de Boli Rare. Sunt vicepreședinta Alianței din acel moment și până astăzi și împreună luptăm pentru modificarea politicilor de sănătate în domeniul bolilor rare. Sigur că există foarte multe cancere rare, deci modelul poate fi cu succes tranzitat către oncologie. Cert este că implicarea genomicii, ca să ajung la sfârșitul întrebării voastre cu un răspuns cât mai adaptat, suntem Institutul de Cercetare-Dezvoltare în Genomică, în care funcționez acum, este partener apropiat cu Alianța Națională pentru Boli Rare, care a fost alături de noi în organizarea Crossului, în organizarea Zilei Bolilor Rare de anul acesta. Avem multe proiecte în comun, proiecte depuse, proiecte la care lucrăm acum, pentru că acest model de lucru împreună, sigur, ne va ajuta să obținem succese cât mai mari pentru toți pacienții care au nevoie de testare genomică. Dacă aducem genomica și terapia personalizată aproape de pacienți, fie că e vorba de boli rare sau de oncologie, beneficiile nu se vor lăsa prea mult așteptate. De aceea, prezența mea astăzi în București, mai ales într-o perioadă în care sunt foarte mulți bani europeni care trebuie absorbiți și mi-ar place foarte mult ca mare parte dintre ei să fie atrași către bolile rare și către pacientul oncologic îmi ridică o mare provocare și mă simt bine dacă pot din această poziție să ajut mai mult decât am făcut-o din Timișoara.
Vă mulțumim frumos pentru răspuns, dar înțelegem că practic este o continuare a muncii dumneavoastră anterioare, e la o scară mai mare și pentru mai mulți pacienți. Mulțumim frumos și succes vă dorim în noua funcție și noile provocări care vă așteaptă.
Mulțumesc tare mult!
Mulțumim! Avem o întrebare din online pentru domnul Lucian Cojocaru. Poate răspundeți inițial, cred că trebuie să continuăm tot doamnei Flaviana Rotaru și apoi să vă spun și întrebarea din online. Vă rugăm.
So, coming back to what we have now, I think we do have too many instruments which are not being used. I think this is what we have now. And if we look back how these endowments have been done, I think we have to understand what we have to correct in the future. Because looking back, we have seen that there were so many research projects which were closed with the acquisition of sequencers, of different kinds of sequencers, which then were not used. Were not used because that research projects were not continued with other projects which were taking those instruments into account. So, again, looking back, we saw that these instruments, before being used for other purposes than research, were supposed to be kept just for research for like 5 years. In 5 years, the new generation of instruments were coming up. And in that moment, using the old technology was already pointless. So this vicious circle went over and over and over again, bringing more and more and more instruments in the diagnostic centers and the research centers. And whenever we were starting or were willing to start using a technology, we were seeing that the technology is already old. Already old, it's not, let's say, the biggest problem, but was already expensive. Because in time, what we have seen is that the cost for sequencing went lower and lower. So if, for instance, we are buying an instrument today, and we will start using that instrument in 5 years, in 5 years there are going to be new generations of instruments. We are going to be much cheaper in terms of running costs. So our instrument will not make any sense to be used, which means that we have to buy instruments and use instruments immediately to be in that moment aligned with the prices in the market. This is one point. Let's say the good part of the technology we provide is that it's not renewed, let's say. Our instruments are able to be used 10 years, 20 years, at least for the moment. We do not have a warranty. There is kind of warranty for life. Meaning that what we change is not the instrument, what we change is the chemistry and the cartridges. And the chemistry and the cartridges are being bought as a consumable. So even if I'm using the instrument today or in 5 years, the difference in cost is going to come from the consumables, not the instrument itself. So this probably is going to change a little bit the environment, but looking back to the technologies which were already in the market, I think the big problem was that the instruments which were bought not being used immediately. They depreciated, they reflected in higher running costs, and then they were kind of impossible to be used. Consider that there were providers coming with the same tests with lower prices.
I want to add something. So, related to the infrastructure, which was bought on EU projects, there is a regulation, European regulation, saying that you are not allowed to use it for anything else except research. Exactly. This means that somebody should have been investing consumables in order to use it, Usually you continue with another project. The budget for research is very low in this country. This is a reality. If we don't have EU funds, actually we don't have funds. Look at the national plan and the projects are on it. But it's not allowed for the public institution to do anything else, not even a medical service, except it's used to cover the cost of the infrastructure. So there was a small gate, disputable if there were clinical studies that were involving these devices would be perfect. And this is the disconnection we have with the pharma, let's say, or with the, that might use the results you bring. So this segmentation between medical device, medical equipment, pharma industry, because it's a defragmentation there. We don't work together. The pharma guys are somewhere. The lab guys are somewhere. The medical device guys are somewhere. We don't work together. And then this is the result. And why they don't allow you to use the devices for the, except for the research, is the rule of competition. Because if you use your research equipment, let's say for normal medical services like genetic analysis, you actually compete unfair a private lab that invested in their infrastructure. That's why you are not allowed to use it for medical, for simple medical services. But yes, still research is not only financed from public money, it's also research financed from private money. And this is something that we should learn. The public infrastructure should learn to communicate with private bodies that are interested in using this infrastructure for their own research. It's a gap there from research to selling research, again, another type of activity, and it's hard for a researcher to actually sell. I'm talking selling, not promoting through publishing articles and so on. Private companies will pay if they know that exists, if it's correctly promoted and so on. This could have been a choice. Sometimes it goes, sometimes it don't, to do it. But from our experience, there is a Caltech model for this infrastructure, which is working very well, involving a lot private companies in using the infrastructure, testing the infrastructure. So you can find ways at the end. But if in 5 years this expires, let's talk about the efficiency of the cost. You know, you buy something that will not be good in 5 years. And if it's not used, that means that all the taxpayers in this room actually throw the money. And it's not fair. Not for us as citizens, not for us as SMEs representatives.
May I add something here? Indeed, the reality is exactly like this. And yeah, one of the points, and the important points, is that in many cases, these instruments were bought, not used, so those money were wasted. This is one point, very important. Also is that we do not have the, let's say, a habit to share. Because I do remember I've been in Genopole in Paris some years ago, and I saw their research facilities and diagnostic facilities, and there were many instruments being used by different groups of researchers or clinical teams. So the same sequencer or the same instrument in general was used by 5-10 groups of people, which we did not do in Romania. If we were having 5 groups, in Romania we were having 5 sequencers, which were used like 2-3 hours a month, sorry, 1-2 days, let's say, a month, because a research cycle is 2 days, sequencing cycle is 2 days, yeah? And in the rest of the time, those instruments were just providing, let's say, or generating depreciation costs, nothing else, yeah? We did not have also a procedure or an environment or some conditions when the private operators can work together with the public operators and they can share the same infrastructure. This happened only in few cases, but was not, let's say, an extensive, let's say, procedure. So that, again, we were having those technology, those instruments, those infrastructure facilities which were not being used.
Yes, I think also there is a gap between collaboration between the private and the public sector. Yes, it's true, and everything you said, from my point of view, is true. We have this situation also in Timișoara. We have another question. One is short for you, Lucian. How can people reach you? Do you have a LinkedIn profile, maybe? We can...
Yeah, I do have a LinkedIn profile,
okay,
but
okay.
we have a website, it's biogenetics.ro. Anybody can find information there. It's office@biogenetics.ro, which is available for any kind of messages. My colleagues, this is an email address which is being seen by several people, so the messages are not going to
And
to
another
be lost.
question we have for Marie Deschamps, and she's asking who owns the data of genomics, all the data, the personal data with mutations. Who owns these data?
According...
This is an ethical question, actually.
I'm
yes.
going into an area where I'm not, let's say, I do not have enough expertise.
May I answer?
Anyhow, yeah, yes. Please.
Okay, so first of all, the data belong to the patient, but according to AI Act, if the patient don't say clearly that they don't want the data to be used for the research, after 2 years, you can use their data in research, ensuring that you have traceability for what type of the research they've been used. So, that somehow helps us a lot from the research point of view. So you are part of the clinical study. Usually they ask you if you want to leave your data for more research. If you don't say no, your data can be used 2 years after that research story ends in other projects, but again, you'll be informed that it's happening, you'll know where it's used and what's the result of this interaction. And I think it's the proper way to do it, actually. You remember that previously they were getting your data for research no matter what. Nobody was asking you if you like to have like 10 residents in the room when you give birth or things like this. Come on. This is how medicine evolved. Of course, we care about the data, but now we become a little bit paranoid. Like, we don't have a problem to put a bikini picture on the Facebook, but we have a problem with our data used for the research. Let's keep it simple. Yes, but who's gonna use it to actually do harm? First of all, they should understand this data. This is the first step. You need a little bit of knowledge.
Yes, it's true. Thank you very much for the question. So we are a few minutes past our time dedicated to this panel. I would like to thank all the speakers and all the persons in the audience, and both online and here in this room. And just a short conclusion. I mean, few words: continue to be creative, continue to innovate, and of course, in cancer, you can find a lot of ways to help patients. So this is the end of our discussion. Thank you very much for everything, for your attention, and the speakers for their time and presentations. Thank you. Bye.